Hi there and welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Thanks for stopping by. Have you subscribed to the channel yet? If not, take a second, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to like and share. Have you heard people talk about how your attitude sucks? People have said sometimes, oh, you've got a bad attitude. The way you're looking at things, you're never going to make anything of yourself because you have an attitude problem. All those derogatory times when you talk about bad attitude. But attitude actually plays a big part in your success in life. So if you have a negative attitude or a bad attitude, you're probably not going to encourage yourself to do better. But if you have a positive attitude and a positive outlook on things, you're more likely to be open to trying and doing different things. But attitudes also affect us from outside. So what I mean by that is some people have certain attitudes towards different groups of people. So a lot of people feel that people with disabilities can only do something, like one thing. Or their attitude is that people with disabilities don't need to work. They should stay home and be taken care of. These attitudes are disruptive and they hurt and they need to shift. And so I want to talk about having an attitude check. So what I mean by that is we have to check our attitudes. What kind of attitude do we have in certain situations? So when something is happening that you're not happy about, you're probably not going to have a positive attitude. You're probably going to have a negative one. So, but it's important for us to check our attitude so that it doesn't affect other people. An example of that, maybe at work, they've put in a new policy or procedure and you think it's absolutely ridiculous. And you have to go to a team meeting about this. And you're really negative about this whole attitude. But when you get to that meeting, you need to check that attitude at the door, even though it's how you're feeling. Because if your attitude comes across in a negative way to your manager or your supervisor, that may cause issues, and you also may add it on to your fellow coworkers and impress it upon them. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't feel that way. 100%. If you don't agree with it and you're not happy about it, that's your entitlement. But the attitude that you portray in situations is one that you do have control over. So a situation when you go to that board meeting, you may express how you're not fond of the policy or procedure and ask questions about it, but you're not going to say, this sucks, it's so stupid, that sort of thing. You're not going to be negative in the way you approach it. You may say, I'm not a firm believer that this is going to work, or I'm unsure of this, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work out. It's all about in the way that we approach it. And our attitude and the way we look at things will help us approach things in a better way. So it doesn't mean you have to change the way you feel, but attitude does play a part in the way that we work and the way that we communicate and interact with one another, as well as in our success. So let's talk about having a positive attitude. So a new day has dawned, you wake up and you haven't had the best night's sleep. You're tired. But you've got this brand new day ahead of you that's full of opportunities. If you're cranky and tired and get into that bad attitude, that day full of opportunities is no longer going to be there for you because you're going to shut it down just by the way that your attitude is focused. But if you keep that positive attitude, even though you're a little bit tired, you're going to be like, okay, what's going on for today? I'm going to try and do this, I'm going to do that, and I'm open to any opportunities that come my way. Having a positive attitude allows you to see the good in people, see the good in all situations. It's not always easy, but by having a positive attitude, most of the time, it makes things go by easier, and it'll make things happy, and also it will be infectious to other people. So if you always have a positive attitude and bring positivity when you go to situations, you're going to affect the people around you, whether it's your family, your friends, your coworkers, or your children. If you have a bad attitude, it's also going to rub off on others. So what would you prefer, having people that are positive around you or negative? That's a question only you can answer. What factors affect our attitude? could be other people's attitudes, it could be circumstance, it could be that we're overtired, it could also be outside situations, so societal. As I mentioned earlier, if people feel that people with disabilities should only stay at home, that attitude reflects on that individual. If an attitude towards women shouldn't be in the workplace and shouldn't be in managerial roles, that's an attitude that perhaps is in the workplace. And that's going to affect the progress of that workplace. So if everybody shares that attitude, no woman's going to obviously get promoted to be a manager. And that's not a situation I want myself in. So I will really always do an attitude check when I'm looking for a job, when I'm looking to embrace a situation or a group of people. I always check what their attitudes are, because attitude does play a big part in all aspects of our life. Am I going to say I have a positive attitude in every situation? No, that's not realistic. But I also do know that I can control my attitude. I always think about, when I think of the word attitude, is that you got to keep your chin up and walk with spunk and say, I've got some attitude, and that's going to get you far. But attitude can be a negative one, a positive one. It can be an assertive one. It also can be an aggressive one. So attitude is all up here, but it does come through in our actions and the things we say and do. So doing an attitude check on yourself and on the people you surround yourself with is always a good thing. I think as children we hear those terms, you have a bad attitude, or you need an attitude check and things like that. But growing up as adults, we also have to think about our attitudes, because we're setting examples for the people around us, especially our children. As a teacher, I know attitude happens in many different forms. My students may have attitude with one another. They may have attitude towards another teacher. They may have attitude towards their family or their parents. My role as a teacher is to make sure that they look at things in a different light. So if they have a negative attitude to any of those individuals I've just mentioned, I want to spin it and let them look at it in a positive way. What would happen if they had a positive attitude towards the situation? I can tell you I haven't been successful in changing the attitude towards tests. That hasn't happened. No student likes tests. But I have been able to get them to try to think outside of the box and to open up themselves to opportunities just by changing their attitude about a certain subject or a certain experience. Sometimes we have preconceived attitudes that we bring upon ourselves based on experience that we've had in the past. So if we align ourselves with something, for example, a student going out for a sport and their last experience was a negative one, their attitude isn't going to be so positive about it. So they tried out for the hockey team and they didn't make it. So when tryouts come for soccer, they're thinking, I'm not going to make it because I didn't make it for the hockey. But soccer's a completely different sport. So if we allow our students or our children to continue to have a bad attitude towards that activities as a whole, they're never going to be successful. Or it could be somebody that they've come in contact with. It could be a sibling, a parent, and we don't like the way they're being treated. So they give them a bad attitude in return. The reality is that attitude will just irritate and probably provoke the situation. So I always try to get my students to look at things in a different way. How does your attitude affect somebody else? And as adults, we need to look at that way as well, because I know my actions and attitude affect everybody around me, whether it's my husband. If I come home with a bad attitude after work and take it out on him, that's not fair to him. And that's also not fair for me to do that to him and bring negativity into the house. So I have to also check my attitude at the door. Whenever I go out to the public and present myself for the charity, I also have to make sure my attitude is in check to be a professional attitude, because attitude can also be positive for a profession. It also could be negative for a profession. So if I go out with a negative attitude towards a situation, I have to go and talk to these people that didn't give us grant money last year. My attitude plays a part in that and how I represent who I'm standing for, whether it's my charity, myself, or my employer. So attitude plays a part in so many aspects of our lives. So when was the last time you did an attitude check? Think about it this way. Each situation probably pulls a different attitude out of you. When I find that there's something happening in the world that's unjust or not right, I get negative. I get angry. But I also know that that negative attitude is going to add fuel to the fire. So I need to check my attitude and shift it. Not that I've changed my stance on it or my thoughts on it, but I have to make sure that I'm portraying myself in a positive attitude, talking about a negative topic. It can be done because we have control over our attitudes. How do we change other people's attitudes? In society, it's a hard thing. Sometimes people are raised with certain attitudes and taught to think a certain way. And that takes time and effort and re-educating people on facts. It needs patience. And sometimes it's not even possible. But unless we try and encourage them to check their attitude towards a situation, it probably won't happen. But on the positive side, if we start young with our children and our students and teach them a positive attitude and the way of looking at things in life, they're going to see the successes and how they grow and how they achieve and the opportunities that come their way, all based on their attitude. Not saying you shouldn't have a little spunk and a little attitude when you're going out there and strutting your stuff. That's a different type of attitude. But a positive attitude will definitely get you further in life. What attitudes do you see out there in society? Do you find it challenging to change somebody's attitude? Sometimes it just needs to be a joke or a smile or showing them a different perspective. We all can do that. We all can play a part in helping shift attitudes for different groups of people, for different cultures, all of that. Because as human beings, we should want nothing better than the best for each other. So I encourage you all to do an attitude check. Check it in all different situations, an ongoing work in progress. And attitude is a great thing when it's a positive one. So keep that positive attitude going. And until next time, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel.